The missed flight that changed everything. The final boarding call for Flight 247 to Chicago echoed across Terminal C. David Monroe glanced anxiously at the digital clock above the departure screen's 20 minutes left. Just 20. His boots, worn from years of labor, squeaked against the polished tile as he hurried through the bustling airport. The backpack slung over his shoulders dug into him with every step, heavy not from its contents, but from what it represented. Inside were 5 neatly printed copies of his resume, a carefully pressed dress shirt folded to avoid wrinkles, and a scuffed leather notebook filled with questions he'd rehearsed 100 times. This wasn't just another interview. This was the interview, the one that could change everything. After 15 years fixing trucks at Jensen's Auto in a sleepy corner of Indiana, barely making enough to cover rent, he'd finally been offered a shot at something more, a mid-level position at Great Lakes Automotive in Chicago. Health insurance, paid vacation, a salary that wouldn't just keep him afloat, but help him rebuild. At 42, he thought maybe, just maybe, life was giving him one last chance. The security line had eaten more time than expected, and the TSA agent had spent a full 3 minutes studying his weather driver's license like it belonged in a museum. Just make it to gate 32, he muttered to himself as he picked up his pace. That's when he saw her. She was standing near the edge of the security checkpoint, an elderly woman, thin, dressed in a faded blue wool coat, 3 bulky suitcases clustered around her like lost sheep. Her hands trembled as she tried to maneuver the largest bag onto the belt. People flowed past her without stopping. A man in a tailored suit, a mother shepherding 2 toddlers, a younger airline employee too preoccupied with his phone to notice. David's eyes flicked to the time, 18 minutes. Damn it, he mumbled. He turned. Ma'am, he said, stepping forward. Need a hand with those? The woman looked up, her clear blue eyes catching his with surprising alertness. Oh, thank you. These bags seem to have grown heavier since I packed them, she said with a wry smile. No problem at all. He hefted the largest suitcase onto the conveyor like it weighed nothing. Heading somewhere nice? Business, she replied vaguely. Though at my age, it's all starting to blur together. As they moved through the checkpoint, he noticed her wincing slightly while raising her arms for the scanner. Where's your gate? She rummaged through her purse, finally producing a wrinkled boarding pass. Gate 47B, I believe. David's heart dropped. 47B was in terminal clear across the airport from his own gate. He checked the clock again. 15 minutes. He could still make it. If he left right now. He didn't move. Terminal D's a hike, he said instead. I'll take you. You sure? She asked, surprise softening her voice. I don't want to hold you up. David managed a tight smile. My mom always said, we got to look out for each other. They walked at her pace. She moved slowly, stopping occasionally to catch her breath. Each pause carved seconds from the ticking countdown in his head. You're very kind, she said during one such stop. Not many people would do what you're doing. David shrugged. Just being decent. But most don't, she replied, peering at him. That's the point. At a nearby coffee kiosk, she confessed she hadn't eaten all day. Tea and a muffin, he offered, setting down the luggage. You've already done so much. My treat, he said, waving her off. When he returned, she accepted the cup with both hands, the heat comforting her fingers. What brings you to the airport today? Job interview. Chicago. Big one. She nodded, then looked at the departure screen. Flight 247. Isn't that yours? His silence was answer enough. Oh dear. You missed it because of me, didn't you? There'll be other flights, he said, forcing a smile. She didn't need to know he had exactly $28 left in his bank account. They reached her gate. First class. David helped her settle in and turned to leave. Wait, she said. I never got your name. David Monroe. Thank you, David. She squeezed his hand. I won't forget this. He nodded, too tired to say more. As he trudged back through the terminal, he found a quiet bench near baggage claim and sank down. His phone was dead. The interview was gone, and whatever money he had left wouldn't buy another ticket. He closed his eyes and slept. For hours later, a gust of cool air woke him. The terminal had thinned. Night had fallen. Lights from outside stretched long shadows on the floor. That's when he saw her again. Margaret. But this time, she wasn't the frail woman in a wool coat. She stepped out of a black luxury town car wrapped in a deep burgundy cashmere shawl, pearls at her neck, her hair neatly styled, her posture commanding. David blinked. She scanned the terminal. Her eyes found him. She walked over. "I thought I might find you here," she said with a smile. He stood, embarrassed by his wrinkled shirt and scuffed boots. "I figured you'd be halfway to wherever you were going." "My plans changed. Back to your gate." "No, back to Chicago. But I'm flying on my private jet. I had some business to handle first." It took him a moment. "Private jet?" "Yes, and I want you to come with me." David stared. "Ma'am, two couldn't. You helped me when no one else did. Let me repay that." He hesitated. "You don't know me, but I know enough," she said softly. "You didn't look at your watch when you thought I wasn't looking. You brought me tea. You carry my bags. That's more than most." She extended her hand. "Please." And somehow, without understanding why, David followed her out. The private jet looked like something from a movie. Cream leather seats, real wood paneling. A flight attendant in navy welcomed them aboard. "Good evening, Miss Haynes. Everything is ready." "Miss Haynes?" "As in, welcome, Mr. Monroe," the attendant smiled. David managed a nod. "Water, please," he whispered. "Champagne for me," Margaret said. The aircraft hummed to life beneath them. "First time on a private jet?" she asked. He laughed. "Is it that obvious?" "There's nothing wrong with firsts." Dinner was served. Fish, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. David had never eaten anything that fancy. He talked about his life, his job, his hopes. She listened. "What would you do if money weren't an issue?" she asked. "I don't know. Teach. Build something. Maybe fix engines where they don't have mechanics." Her smile widened. When a meal was cleared, she asked, "Are you familiar with Haynes Air?" David frowned. "A little. Started as regional flights?" "Yes." She leaned forward. "I founded it 15 years ago." He nearly dropped his coffee. "You're Margaret Haynes, CEO," the woman he'd helped in a wool coat. She explained how once a year she traveled anonymously, watched how people behaved. "You were the sixth person in 15 years who ever stopped to help." He flushed. It wasn't anything special, but it was, she said firmly. "And I've been looking for someone like you." She told him about her new project. Regional maintenance hubs in underserved countries starting in Kenya. Training locals. Building sustainability. "I need someone with your skills. And your values." David blinked. "Me? You'd start in Seattle. 6 months training. Then Nairobi. The contract was triple what Great Lakes Automotive offered." "This isn't charity," she said. "It's an investment." He didn't know what to say, so he said yes. 18 months later, David stood at the top of the Haynes Aviation Training Center in Nairobi. 30 technicians worked below locals he had trained. The hum of engines filled the hangars. Margaret arrived in a light suit, smiling. "You belong here," she said. "I finally feel like I do." A ceremony followed. Hundreds applauded as they unveiled a plaque that read, "Where kindness creates opportunity." Later, she handed him a keychain shaped like a miniature suitcase. "To remind you of the bags that started it all." David held it tight. "I think those were the most important bags I've ever carried." And somewhere in another airport terminal, someone else was making a choice. David hoped they would choose kindness, because you never know when a missed flight might change everything.